We're wrapping up Saturday and Sunday from the 118th New South Wales Championships. The weather today has not disappointed. It was 37 degrees half an hour ago and we're about 10 minutes away from a thunderstorm. We'll start with yesterday. We did the wrap up of Friday night. Yesterday started with the pole vault. Jack Hicking coming back from a pretty awful back injury that saw him out of the sport for quite a while. Started his season at the Hunter Track Classic off 8 steps, looking to get to a full flight of about 16 reasonably shortly. Started at Hunter on 8 steps, jumped 465 there to get back into competition. He jumped at Perth a couple of weeks ago, moved up to 10 steps there and jumped 5 metres, which was a PB for him off the 12-step run-up. Unfortunately, no hided at Adelaide off 12 steps and came here today with the goal of jumping a PB from 12 steps, looking for about 5:20. The ideal result would have been 5:35, which would have qualified him for the World University Games. Unfortunately, no height here this weekend. Pretty frustrated, Jack. I was talking to his mum Linda yesterday, and the frustration is really not having been able to get any sort of match fitness in. He hasn't had that base of competitions to set him up for the season proper. We're into the business end of the season. He just hasn't had enough competition this year. Been training reasonably well, but just that lack of match fitness is starting to show through. Hopefully that can improve as he moves through to the Grand Prix meets and to Nationals in Brisbane. The 800 metres was next. We had the heats yesterday with Taylor John running. Qualified third in a pretty reasonable time. They went pretty steady the first 600, but really motored home the last 200. He ran about 154 yesterday and had just had the final this afternoon at the tail end of the really hot day. As I said, about 37 degrees here. He ran 153.31 this afternoon, so a good performance, but nothing special. They were looking at 152, 153, so about what was expected. Did indicate that he was feeling pretty ordinary in the lead up, and so not his best performance, but certainly not any cause for disappointment. Nathan Brown should also be mentioned. He ran in the heats yesterday afternoon. Didn't make the final, but it was a pretty pleasing performance. He'd run 2:16 at the Bankstown Invitational about 10 days ago, which has proven to be a really good lead-up meet. 2:12 yesterday, so a season's best. Not quite at his PB of 2:09, but he's working well into the year. Hamish Wallace wrapped up yesterday afternoon with 10,000 metres on the track. Probably my favourite event in athletics, the 10,000. Hamish, first time out on the track for the 10K. His PB is 33.08 on road racing for 10. As I said, his first time out here. Ran 34.01, so not quite what they would have been hoping for, but I think he learnt the hard way that it's a lot harder to do 25 laps on the track than it is to do 10K on the road. As I said to him after the race, he'll build from that. He's pretty happy now that he's got a base to work off into track racing, and we'll be expecting good things from him later in the season, particularly as we get into the winter cross-country and road running series. But there were 3 big stories yesterday. Jessica Hull was the first one. We talked about her heat on Friday night in the wrap-up of that day, but she was very good yesterday in the final, 4:20, which is about what they were looking for. Her dad and a coach indicated to us a few weeks ago that he thought she was in about 4:20 pace, and that's exactly what she ran. Terrific performance for her. She'll be very happy with it. Second in the race, so second in the State Open Championships. As we said though, this wasn't her grand final. Her grand final will be in a couple of weeks at the Australian Junior Championships. This weekend was really all about getting back-to-back races in Friday, Saturday, and that'll work really well for her in the strength department, particularly only being a couple of weeks after she ran the double at State Juniors and at the World Cross Country Selection Trials, 6K cross country. The 100 metres were the other big race last night. It was billed as the hour of power, 400 into the 1500 finals and the 100 metre finals. Long day of competition. It spanned about 4 hours. You had to make through 3 stages, the preliminaries, the semis and the final to get all the way to the end. 5 main performers for us. Michael Dunn, probably a bit lucky in the preliminary. It looked to me as if he broke the start. Did indicate though that that was only because he felt the Sydney University athlete inside him breaking the start, which he most certainly did. So he was probably saved a bit there. Nonetheless, ran pretty well and made the semi. Indicated that he was pretty happy with his start in the semi, but just didn't really get into his rhythm through the run. Nonetheless, reasonably happy with it. Didn't make the final. Pretty competitive field here this weekend, but quite a good effort to get through the preliminaries into the semi. He was reasonably happy with his run, even if there are still some things to work on. Wes LeBrew, thought he'd be an outside chance of making the final. Went through the preliminaries reasonably well, as did most of them. Almost everyone making it through to the semis, given the field size. Said he'd be happy, really happy with anything under 11 seconds in the semi-final. He ran 11.25, so not quite under that. but indicated he was really happy with his run. Quite happy with how the run went. It should also be noted this is Wes's last race as a senior. He'll move into the Masters divisions now, and he'll be running the Australian Masters at the Crest in April over Easter. Looking forward to calling that. I've been putting some stick on him for a while about getting older, but it should be noted how much work he's done for us over the years, how many times he's represented the club, and congratulations to Wes on a brilliant senior career. And we're hoping, obviously, it continues well into the Masters. Kev Moore had some promise of some big things this weekend. He was looking to run the 1 and the 2, cruise through the preliminaries as you'd expect for an Australian representative. In the semi-final, indicated he just had some cramping in his calf in the lead up during the warm-up. Felt it again during the practice start, the jump out, and then indicated that he felt it as soon as he started in the semi-final. Essentially the first step out of the block, he felt it. Looked to me as if he ran through about 50 metres and then essentially pulled up and jogged through the finish. Pretty disappointing because the main game for him this weekend was going to be the 200 metres, and he would have been very competitive in that event. He hasn't run the 200, obviously on the back of not wanting to injure that calf. Obviously, still not the main game for him either. He's going to look to some of the Grand Prix meets and obviously Nationals in Brisbane. The other story, of course, Isaac Niamoa. He, obviously, as you'd expect for an Olympian, cruise through the preliminaries. He only wanted to do the one race this weekend, given where his season's at. Wasn't at all happy with how he jumped in the heat, so he decided to run the semi, even though he'd only intended on running the heat. As the thunderstorm's about to hit, so we'll get out of here as quickly as we can. He ran 10:58 in the semi. Not exactly what he'd want to do, but certainly not disgraced by any means. He'll be reasonably happy with that, and he's obviously building to bigger things on the tour and at Nationals. The big story this weekend, though, just tremendously pleasing to see, Lisa Celli. We talked on Friday night about her heats in the hurdles and the flat. Hadn't intended on running the flat final yesterday afternoon, but unfortunately didn't have a choice. The competition rules dictating that if you qualify for the final, you have to run. So Lisa went round in the final of the 400 flat. She was indicated before the race she'd be happy with anything about 57.5. She just ran just over that, 57.65 yesterday afternoon in the final. Ran 7th, but obviously the main game this afternoon. And quite frankly, what an afternoon it was for her. Very hot track, 37 degrees, did seem to help them go around a lot of fast times. Won the silver medal in the 400 hurdle state championship, but the most important thing, the time. Coming into this weekend, a PB was about 60.08, just under 60.1. She ran obviously a huge PB in the heat on Friday night. That was a 60.92 personal best performance, just around about a 1/10.5, 1500ths of a second. She was stoked on Friday night. If you thought she was stoked in her interview yesterday about that, you should have seen her this afternoon. It was a sensational performance. I don't think she quite believed the time, 59.51 this afternoon. It was a magnificent performance and really one of the real heartwarming stories of this weekend, given how long she spent out with a pretty awful back injury and spent about a year out of the sport. So terrific to see her back. We're going to get out of here because it's about to absolutely pour down. The thunderstorm's been coming at us on the radar and it's about to hit us. The three big stories of the weekend, obviously, Jessica Hull, Michael Connemani in the 100 metres and Lisa Celli in the 400 hurdles. Thanks for sticking with us through the weekend. We'll get some more results up on the Facebook tonight. But thanks very much. It's been a great state championships.